My mantra on set, right, was everyday speed. What is the fastest we can go?
I couldn't believe how fast the cars were going.
That was tough. Hello, I'm Jan Mardenborough, a racing driver, and the dude that Gran Turismo the movie is based off.
The 10 of you are the best Gran Turismo players in the world. Now is your chance to race real cars. This is insane.
Jan, when did you first get introduced to Gran Turismo?
So I was 8. My parents had friends across the street from where I lived, and we went over there, and they had a PlayStation 1 and GT1. So I started playing. I remember buying the first car. It was a pink Mitsubishi 3000 GT from the used car market. And I played, I remember it vividly, Autumn Ring. After that day, I would come home from school and always go over their house to play the game. They gave me the PlayStation because they were fed up with this child turning up at their house, and then it just...
You scored massively.
Yeah.
グランツーリスモというのは、僕がプレイステーションのチームに入ってこれからプレイステーションが生まれるっていうそういうタイミングだったんですね。それで山内お前なんかビデオゲーム作れって言われてで100本ぐらい企画書を書いたと思いますけれどもその100本の企画書の中の一つがグランツーリスモでした。
Because you love cars.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been into cars. I think from a design perspective, there's a merging of engineering and art with cars. I've always been really passionate about them. My brother is the same way. And his obsession with cars and his obsession with racing was my way into it, I think.
The initial first play of the game set in motion me to have all the titles since that moment. I play GT because I want to imagine what it's like to drive one of these cars for real. Of course, there was other game titles around, but even as an 8-year-old, I could tell that they weren't as realistic. I would not be here today without Gran Turismo.
2000年ぐらいにはグランツーリスモをプレイすることで、ドライビングテクニックを学べるっていうことは分かってはいたんですよ。ただそれを証明する方法がなかった。それが2008年になって、日産自動車がじゃあグランツーリスモのドライバーを、プロフェッショナルなレーシングドライバーにしようっていうねプロジェクトを始めてくれたおかげでようやくそれを証明する機会が生まれたわけですよね。
All right, come on, you gamer kids. Last time you stretched your legs was to go get another packet of Hot Pockets from the freezer.
I love the way the film starts by talking how cars created the most realistic driving simulator, and there's this whole sequence that shows what goes into making the game so real. How did that all come about?
I wanted it to feel as real as possible, and I also wanted polyphony to feel as authentic as I could make it feel. To reference real life cars, scan them, and turn them into 3D representations.
And I remember the very first conversation we had with you. You said, "I want to get that great Gran Turismo angle in there," and you also talked about being able to create that virtual car when he's racing.
It's, in my mind, the way that he sees the track and the way that he three-dimensionalizes what he's seeing on a two-dimensional screen.
サーキットドライビングって当然視界はすごく低いですよね。でも頭の中ではトラックのレイアウトがあってで自分がどこに行ってどの向きに行って次どこに行くのかってことは無意識のうちにやっぱり計算してるんですよね。
The way you cut it, the audio, you create this own visual language on it, with showing where he is on the screen.
Which I stole from Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
That was actually pretty cool that I could just steal the idea of being able to put a hologram over his car so the audience could track him. That was important because I think if the audience loses sight of where he is in the race, you kind of lose interest.
Yeah.
For people who don't know the game, you can be behind the car perfectly, and then you can be in the driver's seat perfectly, and then you can have almost like a grill camera. That's quite easy to shoot because you can just place a camera at the front of your camera car. It's not that hard to do. The back camera is a little bit more complicated because you need a picture correct, beautiful car. Then you need an incredibly stable arm to hold a relatively heavy film camera. But the one that was actually difficult is the one in the driver's POV. To mount one of our Sony Venice 2s inside the car, you're basically bolting it and fixing it in place so it's rock solid. We tried to pixel perfect match it to Gran Turismo, but the problem obviously then is you're physically occupying the space of the stunt driver. So all of a sudden now you need a right-hand drive vehicle with a right-hand drive stunt driver, with a left-hand drive fake steering wheel with a stunt driver who's lying under the camera with his arms pretending to drive.
With all these projects, big Sony mission is to obviously create collaboration between creators and inspire creators. And I think when you see the combination of the Venice team helping out with all these great cameras, I think that's something that's really special, and I love hearing that.
Thank you.
Man, that was amazing. That's so good.
One of the best Easter eggs is Kaz as the sushi chef.
Which I love because
Yeah.
it's all about perfection and
Yeah.
creating the perfect thing, and that's why I thought it was a perfect fit. That was
Yeah, I
great.
know.
Jan, you are the stunt driver for the actor that plays you, so that must have been
Very,
a really,
very meta.
Yeah, very surreal moment. Tell us about how that feel.
So I got, presented with it, the option to do it in early last year, and of course I jumped on it. I wanted to do that because it's never been done. There was a few things that the stunt coordinators and drivers would tell me, and the one thing he said where it made things easy for me was if you can't see the camera can't see you, and because I'm the main car, it's like, well, I need to be in shot all the time. In order for it to look fast, we have to be going quick. It feels more natural when we're doing that.
And we had cold track temperatures. We were shooting at not an optimal part of the year.
It was shot in the dark. They had to tape the headlights up. But the most difficult part was it was wet, and also the track was recently painted. So the white lines weren't dry. So when we were driving on the track, we're getting not only water, but it was paint. And
Yeah, I remember that.
we had no headlights working, so it looks beautiful.
We lost a couple of drones too on Slovakia, right?
Yeah, the one hit.
A couple of drones went down.
That's the thing that most impressed me is when going to the set, I couldn't believe how fast the cars were going.
It reminds me of old school filmmaking where you kind of front load your budgetary allocation, less into post and more into just the logistics of moving 20 race cars to 6 or 7 different racetracks.
And you had the drones going top speed, you had helicopters. I mean, such a complex setup, but it actually shows when you see the film and you hear it. These cars are truly going incredibly fast,
Yeah.
and you got the actors in there as well.
I always laugh at the fact that Archie, playing Jan, is not interested in cars, didn't play Gran Turismo, and hated being in the car when we were filming. It's so funny, but he's so good as you.
Yeah.
It reminded me of putting a cat in water or something. Like he just refused to get into the vehicle at some point, but he was legitimately on the verge of throwing up.
Yeah. I mean, those cars, they're not easy to get inside. And because he was so tall, we had to remove the seat. So he's sitting on dry carbon,
Yeah.
but still going at race speed. So he's back and he's feeling everything while trying to act as well.
But what was cool was when he watched the movie when it was done, he was like, I'm proud that I did that, which I thought was awesome.
This whole thing is insane, but out of the couch surfing nerds that you sent me, he is the best one. You made it.
I always say, it doesn't matter if you've never heard of the game or played the game, this story is it's really for those people who've been told they're not good enough, and everyone's got a yarn story. I've got my own yarn story as well. Therefore, it's so relatable. That's why your story is so powerful.
It felt like a film that had a very positive, uplifting
Yeah.
sentiment and theme. When I started thinking about that, and I started thinking about the realism of the film, and I wonder if by making the film, there's a 13-year-old version of me that comes out of it sort of inspired to try to do something that seems very difficult to attain.
The older I get and the more experience I have in racing, the more my limits are kind of raised. And now I don't think in terms of limits because I can't. Why would you place limits on what you can do?
僕の場合は自分で目標を定めるというよりはいつもね誰かのためになりたいんですよね。グランツーリスモの、それがユーザーだったり、とにかく彼らを、楽しませたい、彼らをもてなしたいっていう、気持ちの結果、自分の限界を超えちゃっている、オーバーアチーブしちゃってるっていうことがやっぱりすごく多い気がしますね。
I believe you can do anything in life that you set your mind to, but you can't do everything. So I don't place any limits on where I want to be.